I'm Tom Quigley, and I'm a certified arborist here at Olympic Nursery in Woodinville, Washington. I want to share with you today a couple different ways to go about planting trees so that you'll be successful and you'll have a tree that thrives for generations to come. I believe the two most important factors to being successful with tree planting is giving consideration to your soil conditions and planting the tree or shrub at the proper depth. I want to show you 4 different types of root ball containment systems that we typically see in our nursery and that I think that you'll see in garden centers throughout the Puget Sound area. First type is where the tree is actually grown right in the pot, and you can see that the tree is just grown right in that container system there. Additionally, farmers will grow trees in their field and then will dig them out of the field, call this ball in burlap. And sometimes trees are dug out of the field, put in burlap, and then that entire ball is put in a container as well. And then the fourth type, for larger trees or for soil that is less stable, you'll see trees that are contained in a wire cage or some sort of a wire basket setup. Establishing the root crown of a tree or shrub is the most important thing you can do for successful planting. On this particular tree, it came in a pot, and often when trees are grown in pots, they're grown too deep even in the pot, and so you take the tree home and it's already a little bit too deep. So what we want to do here is we want to find where the root crown of this particular tree is, and you can just gently remove soil away from the trunk until you see, in this case it's down there a little ways, but if you keep looking, you're going to find where that root begins to get wider at the base of the trunk stem. See, we're there now. So this is the level right here that you want to plant your tree to, and doing all of this little bit of root pruning is just going to make that tree all the more vigorous. Lots of people want to know about the root crown, or they don't understand the root crown, and here you can see it very well defined. The trunk comes down and then a root begins to grow out, and so it is at this point where you're getting that widening of the root system from the main stem that is called the root crown, and you want to be able to see the root crown when you are done with your planting. If the tree that you purchased was dug from the field and placed in burlap and then placed into a pot, in order to establish the root crown, we really need to take this balled in burlap tree out of the pot. We've removed the pot from this balled in burlap tree, but that would normally be done at the planting site. For the sake of this discussion, we're doing it here on this elevated table. But again, what we're looking for is where the root crown of this tree is, where the root begins to get wider from the trunk. And you can feel the root ball, and you can make an assumption that that root crown is going to be right in this area. And so again, we want to plant this particular tree right at this depth, so that once we undo the burlap and the twine, we'll be able to remove a little bit more soil in the event that that root crown is slightly depressed. This particular tree's root system is contained in this wire basket, but regardless of the type of root ball that you bring home from the nursery, sometimes it can be a real benefit to using water to establish where the roots are and to see what you really have for a root system. Because once we move this tree into the hole, we're going to want to remove as much of this wire and burlap and twine, get all that out of there. And so by using water, you can take a closer look at the root system. Don't be afraid of being very aggressive with these roots. You can get some of that soil knocked off there and make sure that the roots have been cut clean, that everything is in order here. And you can do this water washing either next to the hole or even do it right in the hole, and then just let all that water soak in when you're done with seeing what's going on here. See how that's going to allow us to get in here deeper and remove more of the wire and the burlap, and that this is again the point just above the roots where we're going to want to plant that tree to that depth. Let's see how I'd plant a tree that is grown in a plastic pot. First thing you would do is remove the plastic pot, taking it right off there, and you can see all these roots that have now begun to grow around to the shape of the pot, and these roots need to be massaged out, otherwise they'll continue to grow in this circular fashion. You can begin by physically disturbing some of the roots right at the edge of the pot. If it's really root bound, you can actually take a shovel and cut off a few of these roots, but mostly you just want to get that loosened up. And again, you can use water to loosen these roots as well. With sufficient water pressure, you're kind of washing away some of the soil, and you begin to see the roots that are circling around the pot. And by doing that, you can identify which ones will need to be pruned and set out. This work can be done right alongside the hole, or it can be done inside the hole. If you do it once the tree is in the hole, then you need to wait for all the water to soak in before you finish the planting. Again, you can be very aggressive about getting in here and finding some of those roots, and if necessary, pruning them so that they are now growing out in the right direction. The reason for doing this is that the roots will continue to grow right around in a circle if they come out of a round pot. And so you've got to get them massaged out so that they can begin to grow out and find new soil for new nutrients and to better anchor the tree. All these roots need to be growing in the right direction. See, we're being pretty aggressive with this, but that's okay. So now we've got all these roots that are growing out in the right direction. This tree is now ready to go into the hole. Once the water dissipates in the hole, then we'll be ready to begin to backfill. That's the way you want to have it look. We're going to plant the tree now in the hole, and we have pre-dug this hole, and we determined the width of the root ball, and we now have dug the hole twice that width. And we've been very careful to dig the depth of the hole to match where the root crown is on the tree. We're going to now put the tree just into the hole here. Just gently move it in and get it centered. We now have the tree in the hole. This is the time that you want to take the time to make sure that it is oriented the direction that you want. Once you've done that, use just a little bit of soil to prop the root ball in place so that the tree is oriented to be straight. Just pack a little bit of soil underneath the root ball, just enough to make it stand up in place. All right, at this point, we want to remove as much of this twine and burlap and debris out of the hole in order to make for the best planting. And you can see as we unwrap this burlap, here's the tree. And again, we want to look for the root crown. This is why we're planting the tree just a little bit high, because we know that often with balled and burlap trees, they come to the nursery a little bit too deep. So, there is the root crown. You can see where the trunk is getting wider than the regular part of the trunk. And so this is the level that we want to plant to. We're going to take all this burlap out of here. You can see it's just decaying. All that comes out of there. All this twine comes out of there. And you just loosen up the root ball a little bit to expose some of the roots. At this point, we're going to water the side of the root ball to, again, just to loosen some of the roots and make sure that everything is looking good. That's probably enough, Carlos. Now we want to wait for this water to finish draining into the soil, and then we're going to begin to backfill, and you'll see that we'll finish up with a nice saucer of soil. Now the water has soaked in, and we've really adequately soaked the bottom of the hole, which will help direct those roots down towards that moisture. At this point, we're ready to backfill right up to the top of the root ball. Now this particular soil is very nice, very rich soil. If your soil is more clay-like or is too sandy, at this point you'd want to be amending the soil with some kind of a nice organic compost, your own composted yard waste or a commercially purchased product. You can tamp the soil gently, and that'll also help make sure that the tree stays in its nice upright position. All right, so as we approach the completion of the planting, we want to create a saucer that will hold water, and the saucer needs to be just slightly larger than the root ball, so that as you put water here, that water will soak into this root ball and right alongside the root ball. So right here we're creating a little bit of a saucer, a dike if you will, just a way to contain the water all the way around like that. And now we're going to cover this whole area of bare soil and a little bit of the top of the root ball with a nice compost. This compost material serves many functions. It's going to help moderate the soil temperature. It actually keeps the soil as much as 8 degrees cooler on a sunny day. It will invite in the grubs and the worms, which will leave beneficial products behind for the tree. It'll help retard any kind of weed growth. And most people think it looks really good as well. So again, we're kind of keeping our saucer, our little dike area, intact so that you can water very easily. Okay, so now we're all done planting. We're going to do one final watering in order to really get this watered in well. If any time during the first year that this tree is getting established, you have any doubt about whether the soil is wet enough, all you have to do is come out with a shovel and just stick that shovel deep into the ground and reach in behind. And if you can reach in there 4 or 5 inches deep and the soil comes out nice and moist, that's adequately watered. So that's the way I believe trees should be planted in the Puget Sound area of Washington State. We've re-watered it again now that we're done with the planting. We see that we planted it at the proper depth, as we can see the root crown right here. We have a nice ring of soil, or a nice dike of soil, to create a reservoir for watering. And we understand that you need to come out and check the soil moisture level from time to time to make sure that you're not overwatering or underwatering. If you use all these planting practices, I'm convinced that you'll have a very successful tree that will thrive for generations to come.